Hey everyone, it's Ed Gutowski. What I wanted to do was to create a short video to talk about the Joyce Carol Oates story that we read this week. Where have you been? Where are you going? Last semester, this story was voted the most popular story that we read, even though it's really dark and disturbing. So what I thought I'd do is I'd create a short video that you could watch after you had read the story. And so one of the things we could talk about with Where Have You Been, Where Are You Going is that it continues with that theme, Fall of Innocence. We've seen this sort of that Fall of Innocence for male characters. If we look at Araby and A and P, Araby dealing Fall from Innocence when a young kid falls in love, A and P Fall from Innocence when more dealing with lust or sexual issues. But Joyce Carol Oates does something different because she shows what Fall of Innocence can mean for a young woman. And in that sense, this might be a great way for us to segue to feminism as well, because this story is really pretty dark. So the first thing I do when I teach this in a ground class is I ask my students, what do we know about Connie? Well, Connie's a young girl, she's 15, and we know that her relationship with her family is a little bit complicated. She doesn't really get along with her mother very well. Her mother kind of antagonizes her. Her father is sort of that 1950s businessman. He works, he comes home, he has dinner, he reads the newspaper, and he goes to bed. Right? We know that she has a bit of a rivalry with her sister as well. Connie is sort of coming into her own. I always think she's a normal 15-year-old girl, but sometimes some of my students point out, they think she's really vain, she's arrogant, she kind of flaunts herself, she looks at herself in the mirror, and at the end of this video I'll kind of explain why that is an important detail. But here we have Connie, she's sort of a normal 15-year-old girl, and then all of a sudden things change when she meets Arnold Friend. So notice, right, that Connie's parents go on a picnic. Connie doesn't want to go with them. She's sitting at home all by herself upstairs when all of a sudden she hears a car honking and pulling the driveway, and it's Arnold Friend. And she looks out the window and she's like, who is this guy? And Arnold Friend jumps out of the car and he says, hey, I'm Arnold Friend. I'm here to take you. I'm here to take you. Come into the car. Connie has no idea who this guy is. Now notice there's one thing that's kind of creepy is that the music coming from the car is the same music that's coming from Connie's room. So Connie goes downstairs. There's a screen that separates her from Arnold Friend, and let's assume that Arnold Friend's like 100 feet away. Well, when Arnold's 100 feet away, notice that he looks hip, he looks young, he looks like he dresses like kids her age. And at one point he says to her, hey, I know all the cool music, I know what all the kids are doing, right? But the music that she's saying is like 20 years earlier. So what happens when Arnold takes a step to get closer to Connie, she starts to see that his skin is kind of peeling, suggesting maybe he's wearing a wig. That image versus reality is a major theme in the story because Arnold appears one way in public, but as he gets closer, he's very different from what he appears to be. And Arnold keeps saying, hey, come in, I'm here to come into my car, I'm here to take you away. And Connie doesn't know what to make of this guy. She looks over at the car. There's a couple of important details with the car. Notice it's a yellow jalopy. It's got a bunch of dents in it. It's got a bumper sticker that says, my other car is a UFO. And there are some numbers in the car. I'm going to read the numbers to you because they're important. 33, 19, and 17. And then there's someone else in the car. There's Ellie. And notice Ellie's got something in his ear. The question is, what is he listening to in his ear? Well, it is creepy to think that he might be listening to the same music that Connie was listening upstairs. Is her bedroom been bugged? But more likely what he's looking for is a police siren, and that means this is a really grave situation. And it's the only time that we see Ellie screw up. Ellie says, hey, do you want me to get out of the car and pull out the wires? And Arnold Friend says, shut up, Ellie, just shut up. He turns back to Connie and says, look, nothing's going to happen to you as long as you come out of the car and come with me. Just come in with me. And now he's at the front of the door, so the situation is really, really grave. And the story gets a weird turn because Connie says, hey, I'm going to pick up the phone. And all of a sudden it's like she either has a panic attack, she blacks out, or does she get stabbed? It's a really weird transition. But we know at the end of that story that Connie walks out of the car, she goes with Arnold, and she drives away with him. Now, we don't know what Connie's fate is, right? It's very possible that Arnold rapes her, and possibly he kills her. But assuming that he only rapes her, if Connie comes home, who does she tell? She doesn't tell her mother. She doesn't have a good relationship with her mother. There's no communication with her father. Who's she going to tell? Her dad, right? So there's no one she could really tell, assuming that she lives. This story also always frustrates me because we see instances in this in the news that are all too often, all too real. And if Arnold were to get caught, he could say, hey, look, I didn't force Connie. Connie came out of the car willingly with me. And that frustrates me and angers me as well. So there's a couple things that we should look at within the story. Notice the name Arnold Friend. The last thing he is your friend. We can rearrange the name so that it says Arnold Friend can rearrange it so it says I am a fiend. There's implication that Arnold may be the devil. He's got kind of a hooved foot, a limped foot. Notice when if Connie does get stabbed, the devil sort of has a tail that might have stabbed her. So that's one possible theme, or one possible symbol. The other thing is, if we look at the car, there's a story in the Bible. This is another example of mythic criticism. There's a story in the Bible where the devil arrives at someone's house in a yellow chariot to seduce and rape his wife. So there is some implication, right, that Arnold Friend could be the devil. The bumper sticker on the car, I one time had a student, I thought this was a genius observation, but one time had a student think that Arnold Friend was a space alien. I said, how did you come up with that idea? And he said, well, look at it. Everything is just a little bit off, out of place, right? It looks like it should be normal, but there are just things that give away that it's a little bit different. The car is dinged. It's got a bumper sticker that says my other car is a UFO. The skin is peeling off of his face, so it's like it's melting and he's changing back into an alien. And of course, there's those stories, classic stories from the X-Files. Aliens come down and they seduce a woman. So I thought that's a genius interpretation. The numbers are important because if we look at the numbers, they're 33, 19, and 17. 33, 19, 17, we know those numbers are going down. They're getting lower and lower. And the next number that you would add to that would be 15. So these numbers could be other victims as well. And they're getting lower, which is creepier. And if you add those numbers together, you get the number 69, which is pretty creepy as well. So there's a lot of symbolism in this story. I mean, it is an upsetting story, but I think one of the things that Joyce Carol Oates deals with, if we talk about a feminist issue, she deals with fall from innocence. But for a woman, why does it have to be so different? Why does for a fall from innocence as a woman have to be dealing with rape? And I think society doesn't want to talk about rape. It's something we don't always want to talk about. So the one thing that that's why I stressed at the beginning of the story when I asked students to describe Connie, there are oftentimes some students will say Connie is vain, she's looking at herself in the mirror. And so when I have students who write papers on this, and I tell you I get it every single semester, is that there are students who say Connie got what she deserved. And I don't care what you think about Connie, she did not deserve the fate that she gets in the story. She does not deserve to get raped. And I think it's really interesting that every semester when I teach this story, when students write about it, there'll be oftentimes a male student who will have that perspective. And so I think Joyce Carol Oates is actually writing that because she wants us to push back against that idea as well. So I hope that helps you understand the story. If you want to write about it, it'll be one of the topics to write about. It's a great story, and I look forward to seeing what you have to say about the story when you post on Canvas. Again, if you need anything, just send me an email. Let me know what's going on. But I look forward to reading your work.